Tunisia is a multicultural country that lies between the Sahara and the northern coast of the Mediterranean Sea. The city of Monastir was named after a Byzantine monastery. Habib Bourguiba, former president and liberator and one of the most influential politicians of recent times, was also born here. One can see his name all over Tunisia. The series of fortresses, the Ribats, was established over the course of several centuries. It was already being used in Phoenician times for defense purposes. The angular three-story building is surrounded by an inner yard with a characteristic guard tower and a beautiful view of the city. In the Ribat, besides pieces of Islamic art, there's a famous Arabian observatory from 927. Sousse was established by Phoenician seafarers in the 9th century BC. The monuments of its diverse past are centered in the old city, the Medina. There's a Ribat here as well, which served both military and religious purposes, and a Kasbah, or fortress, a mosque, a minaret, and catacombs from the old Christian times. Hammamet and its surroundings have been a popular holiday center since the 1920s. Visitors choose this place for its long, sandy beaches and top hotels. The capital of the country is built on a hill overlooking a bay. Beside the Medina, one can take a look at the life of modern Tunisia. The city tempts visitors with its large avenues and museums. Some 12 kilometers to the northeast, there was the largest metropolis of ancient times, Carthage. The massive excavation is a must-see for all visitors. Kairouan is a holy city. A pilgrimage to this city can only be compared to Mecca. Djem is famous for its amphitheatre, which seats 30,000 and is still under excavation. The island of Djerba is often called the Tahiti of the Mediterranean by travel agencies. The good weather, clean sea, palm trees, good hotels, parks, and programs really make the island a genuine holiday paradise. Douz is a real desert city on the coast of the famous salt lake, the Chat d'El Jarid. From here, the road leads through smaller cities to Tozeur, which is called the land of palm trees by the locals. The capital, which gave its name to the country, lies on the coast of the El Bahira lagoon. Its strategic importance was soon recognized. The tribe living here surrendered a part of the city, later to be known as Carthage, to the Phoenicians without a fight. The city, which was large, according to the standards of the age, bothered many. Ceterum censeo Carthaginem esse delendam. These are the words of the Roman senator Cato. In 146 BC, the Romans took Cato's advice to burn Carthage to the ground, along with Tunis. The twin cities were rebuilt in Roman style and later became the second largest city of Africa. The Aghlabids, and some 200 years later, the Almohads also made it their capital. When in the 7th century Arabian invaders again burnt Carthage to the ground, Tunis became the most influential North African port. The Turks wanted to conquer it in 1534, but they only succeeded after a short Spanish reign in 1574. The golden age of the city ended at that time. From 1881, similar to Morocco, Tunisia was also placed under French protectorate. Whether it was beneficial or not hasn't been decided by historians. However, it cannot be denied that the cities of Tunisia were enriched by European and French flavors. Of course, this is only true for the newly built parts of the cities. The Medinas, the historical city centers, remained Arabian. There's nothing more exotic to the European eye than an untouched Arabian city center or a bazaar. All of them are centers of Islamic architecture and culture, but the most interesting is the spirit of the place. There are different shops near each other on the narrow streets. The little shops of the butchers, grocers, and spice traders form streets, as well as the shops of the carpet makers and coppersmiths. Because of the scorching sun, sheets are hung above the alleys. There are small mosques and Quran schools in the bazaars, but in earlier times, khans used to stand here as well. One can find such a myriad of smells, colors, and sounds which no cold supermarket could ever match. The merchants wear small, round hats, a fez, or turbans. The shop is usually also a workshop, where craftsmen prepare their goods, daggers, chests, chest sets, and copper plates on the spot. Oriental sweets and baked pastries are also popular. The coppersmiths engrave the names of the buyer's choice on the copper plates. There are some goods which don't need any work, like the desert rose, which is a gypsum crystal. There are many mosques, mausoleums, palaces, and minarets to be seen in the city. One must see the Bardo National Museum, which is situated some 5 kilometers from the center among the buildings of the parliament. There's a line of palm trees leading to the building that stands in a nice park. It was opened in 1888. The main ruling element in the 40-room exhibition is time. There are some relics from prehistoric times proving that cavemen lived on the land that later became Tunisia. The amount of Phoenician and Roman artifacts is huge. Because of the large number of exhibited objects, we highly recommend purchasing a catalog, but there are also detailed descriptions in some travel books, while the museum guides speak English, French, and German. From prehistoric times, mainly skulls, skeletons, and primitive weapons are exhibited. The most interesting artifacts of the museum are those found on a Greek ship which sank 5 kilometers off the shore of Madia. The ship lay undisturbed for a long time, until 1907, when treasure hunters found it. The rescue and conservation of the artifacts is a tale in itself. The result of all those years of work gives an authentic picture of the Hellenic arts of the age. There are pieces from the Carthage excavation in the main hall, while in the nearby smaller rooms, the mosaics which made the museum famous worldwide are exhibited. The Carthage excavation site can be reached from Tunis by car or by train in 30 minutes. The ruins of the city are situated in a well-protected bay. Its highest point is nearly 70 meters. The location of the city was ideal both from trade and a strategic point of view. It was called Quart Hadash, or New Capital, and this name was later distorted to become Carthage. There are no mosaics or statues among the ruins. All the valuable artifacts found here are now at the Bardo Museum, so the two places complement each other perfectly. There are some Phoenician artifacts in the Carthage National Museum near the St. Louis Cathedral in Tunis. There are several buildings from the Roman times, like the amphitheatre, part of the aqueduct, the spa, a theatre, a monastery, the ruins of a basilica, and the remains of several Roman villas. The thermals of Antonius survived in relatively good shape. Seeing the ancient roads of the city brings up the question, where will our highways be in 2,000 years? When talking about Carthage, the legend of Queen Dido is always mentioned, who had a quarrel with her royal brother and sailed to the shore of Carthage along with her followers. She only asked for a small land, the size of which could be covered with a cow's hide. However, she cut the hide into thin layers, which was enough to cover a significantly larger area. So much for the tale. In reality, the city was built here to be able to control the trade routes. At that time, the 400,000 strong metropolis managed to control all the main shipping lanes of the Mediterranean Sea. The Phoenicians sent scouts and later settlers to Sicily, Sardinia, the Balearic Islands, and Gibraltar. They traded in ivory, copper, tin, fur, tropical trees, gold, and spices. They delivered their goods swiftly, made clever trades, and soon made a reasonable profit. Their richness generated envy in the Greeks and Romans. Rome started 3 wars against Carthage and its dwellers, the Phoenicians, as they called themselves. The warlords of Carthage, Hammamet and his son Hannibal, successfully protected the city with their mercenary armies. Hannibal even traveled across the Alps with his army, which was 50,000 strong. However, the time of the big rivalry came in the 2nd century BC. After a 3-year blockade and several smaller lost battles, Carthage was weak enough to be conquered. The Roman general Scipio burnt and destroyed the city, and afterwards had his men plow and fill the area with salt in order to make it unusable for agriculture. However, during the time of Caesar and Augustus, the city was reborn from its ashes until the Muslim Arabian tribes led by Hassan ben Nomane destroyed it forever. Many of the stones from the city were used to build Tunis, while the rest can be seen on the excavation site. Sidi Bou Said, built on a 130-meter-high hill, was named after a pilgrim called Abu Sa'id al-Baji, who settled here in 1207 after returning from Mecca. His tomb is visited even today. In almost every country, there are cities or villages which tempt writers and other artists. The art village of Tunisia is just such a little settlement, similar to a Greek village. The whole area can be seen from the old lighthouse on top of the hill. Not many can resist the effect of the white walls and the blue doors. The gates are ornamented with nails, and there are bars on the windows, created in the Andalusian and Moor style. Carved balconies and domes ornament the houses. The famous blue and white bird cages are sold in the bazaar. There are bougainvilleas climbing the sides of the houses, which are repainted every year, and at the end of the alleys, there is the sea. This is Sidi Bou Said. Despite the fact that Tunisia is a Muslim state, its vineyards produce good wines in such a large amount that they can also be exported. This might be the heritage of French rule. Besides light, fresh rosé wines, there are some heavier red wines here, like the Magon or Tibar, and also a few white ones, like Sidi Rais or the Kelibia, which was named after a nearby city. The village of El Haquaria is built on top of the Cap Bon Peninsula. This is the closest point to Europe. The island of Sicily is only 140 kilometers away, which means it's visible in good weather. The village is famous for its hawk hunts and the mines of Gar el Kebir. These small caves might have been prisons where the workers from the mine were held. In a nearby cave, tens of thousands of bats live. The neighboring Kairouan is an archaeological site, but in its golden age, it was once a Phoenician port and trade center. The murex shellfish, which gives the famous and expensive purple paint, was fished and processed here. Those who are interested in archaeology must see this area, since its houses are better preserved than equally old houses of Carthage, and therefore give a full spectrum of ancient Mediterranean architecture. Traces of the ancient water culture can also be seen. Many buildings were supplied with water, but there are also public spas, since these were influential venues of social life. The city of Kelibia was destroyed by Scipio. To its misfortune, the fort overlooking the harbor had not yet been built. However, later it was not built in vain, since in the 16th century it protected the city from several Spanish attacks. Today, it has been retired and serves as a lookout tower for tourists. The sunset is beautiful from here, but the ships of the fishermen, lit by lamps, are also unforgettable. These lamps not only attract tourists, but also fish. Nabeul is famous for its markets held every Friday, where one can take a look at the local craftsmanship and folklore. The most famous products are the wrought iron goods, straw mats, perfumes, and embroideries. However, pottery has the greatest tradition. Clay jugs are made here, which later served as traps for fishermen. An octopus can climb into the jug, but it cannot climb out, to the delight of the restaurant owners and their customers. Of course, other ceramic goods are on sale as well, like copies of ancient amphorae, taines, jugs, and cooking pots, and basically anything that can be made with this ancient technology. Besides clay and ceramic goods, there are lots of painted wall tiles. This reflects the Moor influence, similarly to the azulejos of Spain and Portugal. While Nabeul is becoming more and more a holiday center, the nearby Hammamet has already been one since the 1920s. A Romanian millionaire built the first villa in the small fishing village. The building, hidden in the shadow of tropical bushes, palm, and eucalyptus trees, is still a cultural center. Its park is a venue for open-air concerts and theatrical plays. The millionaire found several followers since artists, businessmen, and politicians have built their holiday houses here, giving a strong push to tourism. The story is similar to one of the French Riviera. The seaside is similar too, with the palm trees, the old fort, and the restaurants beneath it. Although the Kasbah used to be the barracks of the French Foreign Legion, nothing reminds the visitors of this fact. French cuisine is still very popular. One can buy baguette, pain bagne, and brochette in the snack bars. There are more authentic things as well, like the Arabian shisha pipe, which can be found in every cafe and in the shops of the bazaar. There's no holiday resort without first-class hotels. And there are lots of them. Usually, they have their own beaches and pools, European and Arab restaurants and clubs. The usually 4- to 5-star hotels try to outdo each other in terms of services, and the winners are the guests. There are places with sauna, jacuzzi, Turkish spa, while in others there are fitness, wellness, and thalassotherapy centers, while some of them emphasize the presence of clubs, discos, and sports. Tunisian cuisine is a mixture of Arabian, Balkan, and Mediterranean flavors. What one likes in the restaurants of Bulgaria, Croatia, Greece, or Turkey can also be found here with a different name. And along with that, many foods of Morocco and Egypt. There are couscous, tahin, merguez, köfte, dolman, and börek. The dominant meat is mutton, which is usually roasted. Olive oil is used for all kinds of cooking. The flavors are somewhat hot, thanks to the spicy chili cream called harissa. French and Tunisian cuisine live side by side, not only in the hotels, but also on the streets. In the evenings, hotels offer shows for their guests. The second oldest city of the country is Sousse, which has fallen victim to sieges and plundering several times. Hammamet, which was built by the Phoenicians and was once an independent town, was an ally of Carthage. First, the Syracusans destroyed it. Later, it allied with Rome against Carthage, but although it was on the winning side, it fell victim to the internal feuds of the Romans. It served the Vandals and the Byzantine as well, until the Arabian general Uqba ibn Nafi destroyed it. The town, which was rebuilt with the name Sousse, fought against the Sicilians. Later, it was besieged by the Spanish and the French. Sousse is an important trade and tourist center with many boats departing from here. It also plays a significant role in the economic life of the country as a fishing port. The boats not only go after fish, but also octopus, shrimp, crabs, and clams. The fish market is a really exotic view. There isn't a single swimming creature in the Mediterranean that isn't sold here. The most common fish are tuna, mackerel, and sardines, but there are also rarities here which hardly seem edible at all. Ingredients for side dishes can be bought at the vegetable market. The locals have no refrigerators, so they buy fresh goods every day. There's a Medina, the word originally means city, in every Arab town. Today, it refers to the ancient heart of the city, the old town protected by the walls. Constructed piecemeal over the course of the centuries, the alleys of the Medina can form a labyrinth. Parts of the city center are called souk, or market, and the fort attached to the city wall, which is called Kasbah. While Kasbahs have lost their significance, bazaars have not changed. The women buy their spices, dried and fresh fruit, sweets, and baked goods here. Opposite the Ribat, there is the Grand Mosque, which was also fortified. It has no minaret, but there's a small pavilion on the roof. The muezzin calls the believers of Islam to prayer 5 times a day. According to legend, Allah ordered 50 prayers, but Muhammad, his prophet, thought it was too much, since people cannot work besides so many prayers. He told this to Moses, who told it to Allah, who said that half of it would be enough. But Muhammad and Moses thought it was still too many prayers. The people of the desert cannot say so many prayers, said Muhammad. Allah answered him, and finally they agreed on 5 prayers. This story shows one of the storytelling habits of the Arabian people, as well as their intimate relationship with the godly power. Another explanation is that the 5 prayers represent the 5 pillars of faith, which are faith, prayer, fasting, charity, and pilgrimage. The Ribat, which originates from the beginning of the Muslim times, is a Tunisian specialty, a mixture of a monastery and barracks. It's the home of Muslim warriors, similar to the knights of Christian orders. The organizational structure is similar to that of the Knights of Malta. The building of the Ribat of Sousse surrounds an inner yard. On both levels, there are doors leading to windowless cells on the corridors. The large, dark, unornamented prayer room is the oldest room of such kind in Africa. The entrance was protected by a large gate and a guard tower 20 meters high. Kairouan is a holy city. The name originates from the word caravan. According to the legend, the conquering Arabian general Ibn Nafi stopped his caravan here. The city is a popular destination for pilgrims, and it's said that one pilgrimage to Kairouan equals a pilgrimage to Mecca. There are not only pilgrims in today's Kairouan, which is still an important trade center, but also tourists. There's a majestic Islamic cemetery in the city, which is worth seeing. There's the well of Bir Baruta, where a camel pulls up the water, and there's also the 1,000-year-old bath of the Al-Gabidas. The main pool has a diameter of 128 meters, while the middle pillar suggests that there was a pavilion surrounding it, in case the emir wanted to cool down a bit. The carpet factories of the city are known in the whole country. The classic patterns resemble the ornaments of the Great Mosque. The cross of Kairouan motif is surrounded by a honeycomb like a frame. Most of the carpets available are Berber, but there are also modern patterns which are based upon the assumed taste of European tourists. Whichever one chooses, one must not forget that the more knots there are in 1 square meter, the more valuable the carpet is. The handcrafted carpets contain from 10 to 30,000 knots. A carpet containing 250,000 knots is almost priceless. Similar to almost everything, the price is reached after considerable bargaining. The buyer is expected to bargain. The price is usually around 60% of the first offer. Obviously, it's easier to get a discount if you buy a larger amount. The carpets are folded into small packages, so it's easily transportable by air as well. The monumental amphitheatre of Djem is somewhat smaller than the Colosseum of Rome. It was the third largest construction of such kind in the Roman Empire. Besides the one in Rome and another one in Pula, this is the third one, which is also in a good state. The arena of the 36-meter-high amphitheatre is 65 meters long. The lions and other wild animals, as well as the gladiators, were kept in a maze of corridors beneath the arena. The Savage Games attracted many visitors. You can still see the boxes of the local aristocrats, which had all the comforts and a separate room for the servants. The gladiators sometimes fought each other, sometimes stood against the wild animals. Sometimes the organizers flooded the arena and sent crocodiles against the gladiators, who most of the time did not come to the arena willingly. Those who've seen the movies Spartacus or Gladiator can imagine the life of the fighters. An exhibition put on display in a nearby Roman villa also helps to understand the age. Although excavation has revealed the former main street, market, and spa of the city, they will not be on display for another few years. Djem is also famous for its olive plantations, which had a large part in the forming of the history of the city. The Roman Caesar, Maximinus, taxed the income from olive oil plantations so severely that the city revolted. The people gathered in the amphitheatre agreed that the Caesar had no more rights in the city, then renamed it Thestrus, and elected proconsul Gordianus to rule the city. The retaliation did not take long. The the Roman army killed Gordianus and decimated the population of the city. Matmata is named after a Berber tribe. While fleeing from the Arabian invasion, Berbers wanted to find a new home that was well hidden and also protected them from the scorching sun. So they created these cave homes, which are somewhat similar to the cave dwellings of the Greeks in Santorini. These caves, carved in limestone, are as durable as the ones carved in basalt. The locals were called troglodytes, which means cave dweller. They're related to the natives of the desert, but they chose to settle down instead of remaining a nomadic, wandering tribe. They carved their caves, which are cold during summer and warm in the winter. The round-shaped open yard is a community area, like the patio in Spain. The kitchen and the rooms of the family members are accessible from here. There are homes which have a larder or a workshop, so it's not unusual that the yard opens onto at least 10 rooms. The women cook over fire since gas isn't that common, and they earn money weaving carpets. There, many men are potters, usually working at home. The modern era can be seen here as well in the form of radios and small televisions. Tourism also earns them some money. Some of them not only show their homes to the visitors, but also offer a room for the night. It's no surprise that most of them don't want to move to the new flats offered to them by the government. This place not only draws tourists, but also the movie industry. Some scenes from the Star Wars trilogy were shot here. The remaining sets are now tourist attractions. But there were other movies filmed here as well. Douz is a quiet city built on the edge of the Golden Desert. With the nearby oases, it emits a real Saharan mood. Tourists can try riding a camel here, which isn't an everyday experience. The sand of the desert, which is given to the tourists in a small glass bottle, can be a nice memory. The sun was setting when the caravan started its travel among the dunes. We traveled slowly in our gray and white brown clothes, while the Berber herders called out to the animals in a strange guttural voice. The wind set the fine sand towards us in small waves, and we pulled the scarf of the turban in front of our mouths. The dromedary camel walked slowly towards the south, sometimes walking up a dune, sometimes walking down. Its hump took a different shape every time, and the back of the animal, where the saddle and the blankets were, either leant forward or curved backwards when walking up, so I had to hang on to the wooden handle really hard in order not to fall off. Then a single word from the drover settled things, and I only had to get into the rhythm with the wind," wrote Danish Borach in his diary. Today, tourists can take a look at the desert in full comfort. The hotels, with their parks, are better than many oases. One can drink a delicious cocktail beside the pool while taking a look at the setting sun. It's like the last dream of a desert wanderer dying of thirst. The chots are dried-up salty lakes. Their white surface flashes in the sun like water, although it's nothing more than solid salt crystal. The largest one is the 5,000 square meter Chot El Jerid. It's also the most famous thanks to the mirage and the stories surrounding it. In the rainy season, it fills up with water, and even boats can travel on it. But then the water evaporates, and all that remains is salt. Several stories are told about caravans, which were swallowed by the Chot. Tales about the French Foreign Legion also included stories of traveling through the salty lake. Now, in the past 10 years, there's a safe road leading through it. The 35-kilometer-long road is the work of the Tunisian army. Because of the different salt levels, the color of the water on the two sides of the road is different as well. One side is blue, the other is pink. During Roman times, Tozeur used to be the border of Africa. The ancient caravan road started from Algeria and went to the capital through this place. The part between Chot and Tozeur is bordered by oases. Scientists proved a long time ago that there's a large amount of water beneath the sand. There are small springs here, but they do not unite into small rivers and only provide water to the plants of the oasis. Still, there's a palm tree forest here with several 100,000 trees. Smaller trees like banana, olive, fig, and pomegranate grow in the shade. Taking a ride with the coach under the palm trees is an unforgettable experience. Date palms can grow as high as 15 meters. They start to bear fruit at the age of 7, and they can live up to 100 years. However, they're mostly cut in the 3rd or 4th decade of their lives and replaced by new ones. This is the most economical solution, and this is the only way to provide a constant, good quality harvest. There are more than 60 kinds of known dates, and that provides work for a lot of people. The workers climb the trees with amazing skill and without any kind of help. It's very important since the flowers of the tree must be fertilized by hand. The half-ripe bunches are protected by bags, which are removed only just before picking. The largest work is the harvest, although there's also some work with the drying of a part of the crop. The locals also have to deal with the tourists, so they certainly don't suffer of boredom. In Roman times, Chebika was a military station called Ad Speculum. Today, thanks to the nearby spring, it's an oasis. The new settlement, which is rather dull, was built under the desolate ruins of the old village. The buildings, made of brick, stone, and clay, are covered with sand, and therefore they're almost invisible from a larger distance. Scirocco, the hot desert wind, is very common here, and when it arrives, it brings a sandstorm, which may last for 8 to 10 days. The extreme conditions of the desert are well known. Even a 30-degree temperature change can occur on one day. Tunisia can be divided into 4 areas with very different weather conditions. The most extreme is the Sahara, but the winter is cold in the Atlas Mountains as well, and on the higher parts of the Sahel region. The distribution of precipitation is erratic. While Tunis, Hammamet, and Djerba receive an average of 1,000 millimeters of rain in 90 days, in the hills and on the plains, a much larger amount falls within a few days. The wadis, in this case, are filled with water, and the stream washes away everything in its way. Of course, water is a valuable treasure here, and precipitation forms the hydrography and the plant life of the country, which is rich in the seaside regions and on Cap Bon. There's mild Mediterranean weather on the seaside. Whoever visits Tunisia in the springtime or in the autumn does not need any kind of warm clothing. It's different with travelers and backpackers. They need to dress more carefully and must carry different kinds of clothing. The summer months are often too hot for European people. This is the season for the beaches. It's much better to visit the towns, excavations, and museums in May, September, or October. There's no snow in the winter, except in the upper regions of the hills, and the air temperature does not go below 11 to 12 degrees, even in January. Tamerza, a successor of the Roman Ad Turris, is a settlement of unique atmosphere. Streams trickling in the vadi or gullet have formed small rapids and waterfalls in several places, heightening the romantic character of the area. This is where Tunisian phosphate country begins. Apart from crude oil, this is the country's most valuable natural resource, which is processed by large factories, primarily to produce artificial fertilizer. The export thereof is also quite significant. The discovery of phosphate is attributed to a French amateur paleontologist. He failed to find any dinosaurs. However, his discovery in 1886 enabled the mining of an annual 5 to 6 million tons of raw material. The old Muharez was depopulated after a flood caused by heavy rains. The new settlement was built a few hundred meters from the old one. After the jeep safari, the road back to the buses leads through the hills. Tunisia is proud of its rich heritage, traditions, and music. A trip to this country would not be complete without taking in an evening of traditional folklore.